All right, so it is about 8 a.m. in the morning, as you can see. I've literally just gotten out of bed. The first words I've said today have been into this mic and to you people because something amazing happened last night. And normally I don't do videos like this, especially here on the main channel. I'm mostly influencer boxing. I do some MMA here and there. I do some boxing here and there. But the sport of MMA last night, and in the UFC specifically, just produced the next biggest superstar. And I already did a video with Sensei about this. I can't stop talking about it because Sugar Sean O'Malley just knocked out Aljamain Sterling at UFC 292 in the Boston Garden. And the UFC will never be the same. What just happened? Like I said, if you guys are actually living under a rock, you have no idea what happened last night. I'm not going to go through the fight breakdown by bit by bit by bit, but I am going to tell you that last night was a story of parallels. Shout out my guy Mike P because it made me think of his round versus Danny Myers. But the story coming into this was Sean O'Malley versus Aljamain Sterling, who is potentially on the precipice of being the greatest bantamweight that's ever lived. Sean O'Malley, how does he do when he gets in front of a real grappler? His takedown defense, maybe not the best at the highest level. And just a lot of questions around the guy that has the colorful hair and the tattoo and acts like a bit of a cocky, young, brash kid. Again, the parallels of what we heard during the rise of Conor McGregor, and we're going to stay on that topic. But Sean O'Malley walked into the Boston Garden last night with everything within his grasp, everything that everyone was saying about how he couldn't get this done, including myself. If you looked at this fight and you went, what's the most likely option? It was Aljamain Sterling grappling Sean O'Malley and Sean O'Malley not being able to do a damn thing about it. I don't know how many people picked Sean, but if you did, it was because you believed in his power and his shots and his stand-up, but it wasn't necessarily because the odds were in his favor. In fact, they weren't. He was the underdog here, but he walked into that arena and the most perfect song for this moment, for this setting, played as Sean walked to the octagon. It was Superstar by Lupe Fiasco, and the lyrics go, "If you are what you say you are, a superstar, then have no fear, the time is here." And that is apropos because if you go back through the history of Sean O'Malley in the UFC and you look at from the Contender Series to now, all the things that have been said about this kid, outside of the octagon, he's got the look, the pink Lambo, the hair, the tattoos. He's a superstar. He has it. But inside of the octagon, when it comes to the highest level, the top 5, does he have it? And that was a question that had to be answered. But one that didn't have to be was, again, the superstardom of Sean, because he's walking to the octagon and he's got the entire Boston Garden going crazy. The green hair wigs, the t-shirts. People were on board with the Sugar Show. People are on board with the movement. And again, bring back those parallels to Conor McGregor, UFC 189, as he is starting his rise and he's getting his first shot at the title. Again, it was an interim belt, but bear with me. He's fighting Chad Mendes. Sinead O'Connor, rest in peace, is singing him to the octagon, and the fans are going nuts. They believed in the rise of Conor McGregor, even when he was an underdog, even when the questions were out there. What happens when you face an elite level grappler? And Aljamain Sterling comes to the octagon, and this is how you could tell that Sean O'Malley, not being from Boston, being from Helena, Montana, was able to bring all of those people together that night because they were booing the bloody hell out of the champion. I think one of the first things someone said was, "Fuck you, Aljo," as he walks to the octagon, which Aljo is one of the nicest dudes ever. And his story by itself will be told one day because he had a great moment at the post-fight press conference to remind people like life is not just this sport, but for this moment, it felt that way. And I'm not going to go through, like I said, the whole breakdown of the fight, but essentially both guys get into the octagon and the fight starts. Round 1, a lot of a feeling out process, but round 2 is where magic happened. And again, I'm going to keep doing it. We bring back those parallels. Conor McGregor knocks out or TKOs Chad Mendes in round 2 of their fight after being grappled in the first. Sugar Sean gets a little bit of a grappling exchange in round 1 and 2, but then steps back on one of the best right hands I think I've ever seen, and it rivals parallel Conor McGregor at UFC 194. When Conor stepped back and dropped that left hand on Jose Aldo, it still was probably the most impressive punch I've ever seen because of who he did it to in the moment and all of that. But Sean O'Malley's right hand that he lands here on Aljamain Sterling, the timing of it, the distance, the accuracy, the tracking of Aljo coming forward, sliding back, and then dropping the right hand behind it. Sugar Sean put a picture-perfect end on this fight. And I know people are saying, oh, it was a little quick stoppage. Like I said, I've recorded something with Sensei, a more in-depth breakdown where he talked about this, and it was a good point. Aljamain Sterling is a fantastic wrestler, and when those guys get in trouble, they get to their knees, they look to grab legs, they look to wrestle. He was turtling on his back. There wasn't a wherewithal to get back to his feet or get to his knees, look to a leg, grapple. It was more so, let me just figure out what's going on here. I'm trying to get my wits about me. And Sean was still raining down punches. So I don't think that stoppage was necessarily early. I think it was a good stoppage from Mark Goddard. And then you see the crowning moment. It wasn't even when Dana put the belt on Sean, because yes, of course, that's the quintessential crowning moment. But when Mark Goddard steps in and Sean O'Malley's declared the winner, he turns to the crowd, this stoic, stone cold face like I told you so, without having to say I told you so. And the crowd is going crazy. The cameraman can't even hold the camera steady because of the vibrations in the room. Beer is flying in the air. The green hair is flying in the air. The people are losing their minds. And that, you didn't know it already, from the walkout to fight week to everything that Sean O'Malley said, like, I am going to knock him out. That was the crowning moment. That is when, as Lupe Fiasco said, if you are what you say you are, a superstar, the time is here. What makes this win more impressive to me is, yeah, he was an underdog, and yeah, there was a massive, massive test because Aljo is, again, potentially the greatest bantamweight ever. He out-grappled Henry Cejudo, who is a gold medalist wrestler. He is put down legend after legend, but what he couldn't be prepared for was when he shot in with a left hand. Again, he likes to shoot under his shots. He throws the looping left. That Sugar Sean O'Malley would be stone-faced, that it wouldn't phase him, that the feints wouldn't get to him, that he would be ready, locked in, step back, parry on the left hand, right hand over the top, and close the show. But that wasn't even the most impressive part, because afterward, and again, everyone in the sport of MMA deals with injuries, everyone. But Sean O'Malley went on Bradley Martin's podcast and talked about the injuries he was dealing with that they weren't going to put out, but obviously after the fight are able to, and basically said if this was not a 5-round fight, if this was not a main event, he would have pulled out. Injured in camp, had some issues with his ribs. Again, I bring back that parallel. Conor McGregor, UFC 189. Jose Aldo pulls out. Conor McGregor has the option to do the same, stays on the card after the ACL and wins his interim belt. And at 135, Dana White knows that Dana has it. He has his next big superstar. And the reason I'm saying that is because the UFC just did something they've never done I don't remember at least the last time they've done this. The Sugar Show gets it done, wins by knockout. And usually you'd see clips leading up to the knockout. Usually you'd see, post-fight interview and maybe some pictures over the knockout on SportsCenter or something like that. No, they put out the full knockout on Twitter 2 hours later, and then they put the entire fight out on YouTube a couple of hours later on a pay-per-view event. And that may seem like I'm making a big deal out of nothing, but guys, the UFC doesn't do this, especially on their pay-per-view events. They are massively, massively, massively into keeping that stuff in-house on Fight Pass or on their own networks so that they can reuse it if it's on pay-per-view down the line for promo stuff, whatever. But to the public, you have to pay for that stuff, which tells me two things. One, they are going to put a rocket ship on Sean O'Malley's back, and it's already started. I mean, look at his rise to the UFC. Of course, Dana was probably sitting there biting his nails, hoping that Sean O'Malley won. And once he did, they are strapping him to that freaking rocket and sending his ass to the moon. I've never seen that, where they show the entirety of the fight on YouTube mere hours after the pay-per-view event ends. And number two, what it shows me is that they did well on that pay-per-view, which again reinforces that Sean O'Malley is that superstar. Like I think I heard Dana say they did better than they'd ever done in that weight division for a main event, a bantamweight main event. And if that's the case, that's the cash cow. You're gonna see him on UFC 5 or whatever it is. You're gonna see him on all billboards. You're gonna see him again take that responsibility of that Conor McGregor arc. The question has to be asked, just like it was asked for Conor and for Izzy and for everybody else once they got to the belt. How long do you keep it? There are killers at this 135 division. Sean O'Malley just made his way to the top. How long does he stay there? For the UFC's sake, they better hope that he's got a flag planted at the top and his own words stays there till 2035. But I don't have those answers. I don't know how long he stays there. But all I can say for now is last night was a moment in time I hope you guys never forget, because we don't get those all the time in combat sports or in any other sport. And last night was the definition of why combat sports is the best on earth. You can't recreate it in a game. Listen, I love football, but you can't recreate that. Stakes, the moments, the fans, the execution, and ultimately the beginning of the Sugar Show era. He is a superstar. So have no fear. Time is here. And I guess we'll find out.